Good evening and welcome to the Carnegie Town Hall. This meeting of the Sioux Falls City Council will begin in a few moments. The City Council meets on the first, second, and third Tuesday of each month at 7 p.m. and serves as the city's policymaking and legislative body. Each meeting is governed by Robert's Rules of Order unless those guidelines conflict with city ordinance or charter. City Council meetings offer an opportunity for citizens to speak directly to their elected representatives. Those in attendance are invited to address the Council during the public input segment at the beginning of the agenda. At that time, any issue that is not subject to formal action later in the agenda can be addressed. Testimony that concerns a resolution or an ordinance's second reading is only allowed when those specific agenda items are being addressed by the Council. When addressing the Council, citizens should speak directly into the microphones at the podium and state their names for the record after being recognized by the Chair. To accommodate and respect all viewpoints, citizen comments are limited by ordinance to no more than 5 minutes each. Comments should be respectful and focused on providing new information that will benefit the Council's deliberative process. The Chair reserves the right to limit the number of speakers. City Council meetings are broadcast live on CityLink and online at www.siouxfalls.org. Information regarding the City Council, its committees, meetings, briefings, and members is available by visiting www.siouxfalls.org/council or by calling the Council office at 605-367-8085. Thank you for your interest in Sioux Falls City government.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to tonight's City Council meeting. Certainly pleased to have you here today. It is January 17th. First, we'd like to introduce you to your City Council.
Council members Erickson.
Here.
Erpenbach.
Here.
Kiley. Neitzert.
Here.
Rolfing.
Here.
Selberg.
Present.
Starr.
Here.
Staley.
Here.
Councilors, thank you very much. In Sioux Falls, we start our City Council meetings with an invocation. We're very, very pleased to have Pastor Bob Chell with the St. Dismas of South Dakota to lead us in an invocation tonight. Pastor, welcome. What we'd ask is that you stand for the invocation and then remain standing for our Pledge of Allegiance. Pastor Bob?
Yesterday we commemorated Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., whose courage and leadership transformed our country by speaking out for those marginalized by the policies of the day. I've seen a lot of changes in my 64 years. The summer following my junior year, I was a volunteer at what was then called the Redfield State Hospital and School, where I received $5 a week for volunteering. But those buildings are largely empty now as people who are developmentally delayed have been mainstreamed and, like my nephew, hold down a full-time job. And as a part of my seminary education, I served as a chaplain at Hawaii State Mental Hospital. You might think it sounds pretty cushy to be young and single and spending 3 months living in Hawaii, but I can assure you it was much better than you imagine. It was really great. But even then, the buildings were largely empty, and in the move to community mental health centers, I mean, those buildings have all been raised or repurposed, just like the buildings in Yankton. We've made great progress in working with the developmentally delayed and those facing mental health issues. When I came to Augustana, which was then a college in 1970, I visited the state penitentiary, where I'm now the pastor of St. Dismas, a congregation behind the walls. In 1970, there were 319 people incarcerated in South Dakota. Last week, there were 3,119 people, 18 short of a 100-fold increase. When I came to Augustana, if there was a homeless problem, I wasn't aware of it. Yesterday, after I wrote this devotion, I saw in Kelloland that we have almost 1,000 students who are homeless in Sioux Falls. Well, we've made great progress. There's still a lot of work to do. I think all of us who've enjoyed the bounty of our nation, of our state, and of our city have a responsibility to those who have been left out of the American dream. The young mom taking care of 3 kids, the young man living at the Bishop Dudley House who maybe found a job yesterday, the staff at the banquet or the Glory House or Kingdom Boundaries, or all the agencies that serve the poor and the powerless, who try to do more, serve more people with diminishing resources. 3,000 years ago, a man tried to speak for those who were marginalized, and he was not well received. In frustration, he went out into the wilderness, where a great earthquake shook the land. There was no wisdom in the earthquake. And a great fire came, but there was no wisdom in the fire. And a great wind, it too gave him no help. But then he heard the still, small voice of God. And I would challenge all of us, you who are elected to lead, and those of us who enjoy the bounty of this country, to be mindful of those who don't enjoy the great success and privileges that we have enjoyed as citizens of this great country in this great city. I commend you to listen to the prophet Elijah and the wisdom that he brings. May your decisions and your deliberations be mindful of those who are most in need of our help. Thank you.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you so much. Council Chair?
Yes, I would like to formally announce in front of the council the selection of Kimberly Schroeder as our new lead auditor or manager of the internal audit department. Kim, would you come forward and just give us a little brief outline of where you're at and that kind of thing, and so that we can acknowledge that you do have that position now.
Sounds good. As you all know, I've worked for the city now for about 4 years in the internal audit department, and I just want to not take up much of your time, just say thank you for the opportunity to take on the new role as the internal audit manager, and I look forward to continuing to work with all of you as well as administration and management to continue our efforts to serve the city.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, Kim.
Kimberly, welcome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Council, I'm going to move to the consent agenda. Any motions or changes to that or discussion items?
Move to approve, Erpenbach.
Second, Selberg.
Councilor Ploutz made that motion to approve our consent agenda, seconded by Councilor Selberg. If there's no discussion, a roll call vote, please.
Council members Erickson.
Yes.
Erpenbach.
Yes.
Neitzert.
Yes.
Rolfing.
Yes.
Selberg.
Yes.
Starr.
Yes.
Staley.
Yes.
That has passed 7-0. Thanks, Council. Our regular agenda, any changes to that, Council?
Move to approve, Erpenbach.
Second, Erickson.
Councilor Bucks made a motion to approve our regular agenda, seconded by Councilor Erickson. A roll call vote, please.
Council members Erickson.
Yes.
Erpenbach.
Yes.
Neitzert.
Yes.
Rolfing.
Yes.
Selberg.
Yes.
Starr.
Yes.
Staley.
Yes.
Councilors, that has passed 7-0. Thank you, folks. Welcome. This is the public input portion of our meeting. Basically, you can come forward, engage the council in any topic of your choosing. Just a couple things. We'd ask you just introduce yourself to the people of our town. Please keep your comments to 5 minutes or less. And just wanted to remind you that you should engage the council as a whole versus speaking to specific members or talking about specific members. Maybe that's the best way to put it. Welcome. Welcome.
Welcome. I'm Mr. Mayor, City Council. Jay Major, Sioux Falls, MedStar Paramedic, Ambulance Service. So, Christine, I'm going to put a little thing at you. I think you'll understand more than most. Your brother, Vinatieri, who's one of the best kickers in football, if he was kicking the football, imagine how good he would be if he had no defense to block him. Imagine how far back he could make a field goal and how good he would look by making that field goal with nobody there to disrupt that ball from going from there into the field goal. There's a reason that I'm saying that, Christine, and it's not to point at you, but I thought that was a pretty good analogy. I sit in this morning at the informational meeting. I once again listened to a description of how REMSA and those folks feel about how the ambulance services, time responses, and mutual aid and things are going in this town. And once again, the same analogy works. As you heard all these big acronyms, you heard about how great everything was, but you didn't hear anything from anybody else who might have been able to dispute any of it. And I'm not going to have time in 5 minutes, obviously, to dispute a lot of this, but there's a lot of information that we've also accumulated for the betterment of our services, not to get people in trouble, not to say that we're better than anybody else, but there has to be a truth detector in this business also, and there's no truth detector yet. And we sat and listened to that. What I'm going to do right now is I'm going to show you why I feel I'm able to talk to you about ambulance service. I'm going to show you my service. There's the front of our building. We started in an old car wash bay. We went from the car wash bay to a 6-bay and another 5-bay out in Hartford, South Dakota. We have 7 critical care ambulances, and there's going to be some other things I'm going to tell you about. That's where it all began. We have a full-fledged billing office, 24-hour dispatch with, and this is things you probably haven't seen before. We can track everything that we're doing on the screens in front. Every place our vehicles go, we can see how fast they're going, when they brake, when they turn. In fact, when they start that vehicle motor up. 24-hour dispatch center. This is our billing office. That's Crystal. She's got all of the certifications of a master biller and coder. We have 2 folks just like that. That's our billing office. We have a full-fledged training center. And in this training center, we can train everything from this community CPR, which we do, all the way to the first aid for people, American Heart Association, advanced cardiac life support, PALS, pediatric, infant life support. We have instructors that teach everything up to the critical care paramedic protocols. We can do that right at MedStar. And Gary here is my director of operations. He and I have most of those certifications ourselves to do all that. We have a simulator, a very expensive simulator that we practice on with our intubations, IV skills, and so forth, that keeps our medics skilled. We have 2 of these vehicles you're looking at right here. That vehicle is 100% ready to take a 911 call, advanced life support with drugs, life packs, everything else you can imagine in an ambulance is in that vehicle. We have 2 of those. Something new that we've started, and you'll see, all of our ambulances are now getting a facelift. And we just bought 2 brand new ambulances. And as you can see, the Mount Rushmore is on this one. On some of the wheelchair vans, I'm going to show you that the service we're opening up, we also have, and here it says, obviously, we're equipped with the best medical equipment that you can buy. This is a new van that we bought. It's Mercedes-Benz. It has a picture of the falls on it there. We're proud of our heritage. That's the Sioux Falls right there on this brand new vehicle. This right here is part of our new fleet. And in this fleet, on this particular vehicle, we put the Statue of Liberty with all of our Air Force, Army, Navy, Marines. My brother is a Command Master Chief of SEALs Teams 5. His son is in SEALs Team 6. My dad was in the Air Force. We're thanking everybody for allowing me to stand here and speak in front of you. Thank you to all these folks for the freedom that they give us. That's going to go any place that ambulance goes. We're staffed with, we have 35 plus employees. And most of our employees are trained also not to perform, but also to teach with the state-of-the-art equipment. We have the LifePak 15, state-of-the-art LifePak 15s with that little machine over there, an automated CPR device. We have those in our vehicles, along with the IV pumps. That ventilator there that you see is the same ones that they use on the airplanes. We have 2 of those, trained to use them. How much time do I have, sir?
Jay, you're done. Thank you, though. Appreciate it.
I got just 20 seconds.
Jay, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
I should have asked you. Gary, do you want to finish? There you go. Gary's got 5 minutes. Go ahead and finish, Gary. There you go. Thank you, Gary. Introduce yourself, Gary.
I'm Gary Bauer. I'm the Director of Ops at MedStar.
Hi, Gary.
How you doing? Thank you for the opportunity.
You're welcome.
I'll just kind of finish up real quick. To continue on what Jay was saying, we have integrated GPS systems in all of our vehicles so that we can keep track of where every vehicle's at any given second. I can ask my dispatcher, where's a truck, where's not a truck, and I can know. That's one of the things with the pooling that they were talking about today. We didn't have the opportunity to get this in with everybody because then instead of looking for 6 or 7 ambulances, they could look for add R5 to it. And if we just happen to be done at a hospital, for example, route us over to something. If you look on the right, that's oxygen assist system. That lifts the, lifts up the heavy bottle so the guys don't have to pick it up with their back and everything. And we also carry medical air, which is pretty new in this day and age. That allows neonate transfers, newborn babies that are in crisis and all those things. A lot of those we operate hand in hand with the flight team for, but having that medical air is real handy for those big units. If you see them on TV, they have the little babies in them. You stick your hands in on the little gloves. It's those kind of units there. Here's our employee lounge, our quarters. We have quarters for all our employees. This is where they hang out waiting for a call. You know, not there very often, but we have TV, all amenities for like home. New transit business coming that we're looking into. We are approached by area hospitals concerning different transportation avenues other than emergent ambulance or non-emergent ambulance. So Jay went out and we found some wheelchair vans, and we're looking into getting into that endeavor relatively soon. That's another one. We have 2 of these vehicles. That's the second one. As everybody knows, MedStar, we own and operate a dirt track race rescue team. Very, very proud of that. A lot of national prominence with that, all based out of Brandon. This is a really cool picture of my aquarium that's in my office. We even have our own aquarium. But if you'll notice, see that eel? That's the important thing because he's one of the biggest eels that the guy that ran the place told me from, so we took a picture of it. Thank you for your opportunity.
Thanks, Gary. Appreciate that as well. Welcome.
I'm Bruce Danielson. There was supposed to be some music with this that I hope you will go out to our website and actually see this video. So I'm just going to kind of let it play out here for a little bit, and it goes for about 3 minutes. But this past week, we had the dedication of the new office building, what we're calling the Romantics Annex. And we saw some things that were going on and wanted to highlight it in here, so I'll let you all read it. You notice everybody got their own little gold shovel.
No, Mr. Mayor, I don't know that I need to sit and watch this.
There's just a few more moments of this, and it is really important because what we discovered in this whole process was that we had 8 city council members that were actually dissed in this whole process, and that's significant There's 5 members sitting here that wanted to be at the meeting, at the groundbreaking. In fact, 2 of them sitting up here that got dissed were sitting there, and they weren't even asked to sit at the front of the room, which I thought was very surprising. And so we've had, after 2 successive city councils voted to stop the soon-to-be-built Romantics Annex office building for city employees, 6,404 citizens of Sioux Falls in 2016 asked through a petition drive to stop this foolhardy plan. I'm here to present a simple sign to show our appreciation, and I have former Councilman Kermit Staggers here with me, and we had this petition drive, and we wanted to show our appreciation for all 8 of the principled people's representatives who were overlooked at last week's groundbreaking. Greg Jameson, Dean Karski, Kermit Staggers, you can go ahead and pop that up. Kermit Staggers, Christine Erickson, Greg Neitzert, Marshall Selberg, Teresa Staley, and Patrick Starr. Since you did not receive your commemorative garden utensil last week, Stop the Funding now presents you with your own version for your desk. And we want to thank you for your service. So when the meeting is over, I'd like to be able to present these to y'all. And thank you.
Good evening, Council. My name is Josh Kaiser. When is it on the books to fix 49th from Oxbow to Western? That's just rough. If you've ever driven down there, you'll say the same thing. It needs to be fixed. It's been patched probably the last 10 years. It needs to be fixed. And Mary, you had a Q&A at Black Sheep Coffee House, and you had that African-American gal that worked at LSS saying there's not jobs for the African-Americans. I work at Popeyes on South Louise. It's 80% blacks and 1% Hispanic and Guatemalans and 19% whites that work there. I've worked there since they opened November 22nd of last year. So that's all I have to say.
Thanks, Josh.
Yep.
Scott Harrisman, Sioux Falls. I was watching that, I'm gonna fix my hair here, I had a little hat here. I was watching the informational at 4 o'clock and about the Paramedics Plus thing, and it was funny because when we were told that they were gonna start doing this project, Joe Franken told the media, the citizens of Sioux Falls, and the city council that we were all too ignorant to understand their plan. Okay, so we come fast forward to today, we get to hear the plan. Well, for one, there was no supporting documents online in SIRE to show the presentation, for one. So we're all waiting in anticipation to hear about this secret plan that was so complicated. They didn't tell us anything. Told us the exact same thing that they were going to do at the beginning of the month. So I'm wondering, what was the secret plan? Did we get to hear it today? Or is it still a secret? I'm guessing it's still a secret. The main reason I came up here is, I don't complain about the roads too much. I think our roads are in pretty good shape on the main arterials. It's a lot of the back streets that are bad. But recently there was a huge water pipe explosion, I think around Christmas, over by Avera. And where it happened was in between 2 railroad tracks that are uplifted from Cliff Avenue, and they're already a pain in the butt to go over, to tell you the truth. But anyway, they hurry up and they fixed the problem, and then they came back and they repaved it. Now, I don't know who is in charge of repaving that, but I don't know if they know what a level is or a transit or anything like that, but that has got to be one of the worst jobs I have ever seen anybody refill a hole like that. It's terrible. And I hope that this spring, when the weather improves, that they smooth that out. They basically poured squares. So you get to jump over the first railroad track, you get to go down on this dip, and then you hit another dip, and then you pop back up, and then you hit the railroad tracks again, and you jump over it like that. You basically got to go about 10 miles an hour through there. You're going to lose the front end of your car. So I hope this spring, unfortunately, we'll have to spend a bunch more money tearing it all up and actually making it smooth. And maybe the city can pull out one of their transits or levels and figure out how that works. Thank you.
Sierra Broussard, Sioux Falls. Not to talk about the homicide case that just happened on January the 1st, because I'm well aware of what happened. It's very disturbing that the media and Chief Burns said that alcohol was a factor. I'm going to say that we had 2 victims in this case. This homicide could have been prevented. We have one that's deceased and one that's in jail facing charges. I'm going to reach out to the transgender community. We have to better protect ourselves when it comes down to certain situations, that we don't have to get beat up, be put in ICU, or murder. This homicide could have been prevented. Second of all, as you know, that this is going to affect council on their budgets in October. Children's Inn has discriminated against the transgender community. I have filed a legal complaint against them at the ACLU. If we do not come up with an agreement, I ask that the city take the money of the $12,000 or $15,000 and do not give it to the Children's Inn. I am a domestic abuser, not once but twice, so I know what it's like to be domestic abused. But not putting transgenders into the Children's Inn if you didn't have the correct surgery is nonsense. We're not going to put the transgender community in hotels and check on them once a day. So I'm letting you know now that the litigation has started, and it will affect council members, because I'm going to ask that that money be pulled from them when it comes to budget time if they do not come to an agreement. As of right now, they're not being cooperative at all. Again, the crime is on the rise here in Sioux Falls, and I am aware of it. But it takes the police departments that is doing their job. The police department cannot go on the streets and start picking up the crime. We do not have citizens coming forward to actually testify in court and to get these criminals off the streets. This is where we come with the crime here. I'm asking the citizens to step forward on this crime and help the police departments. This homicide case that happened in an apartment building, no one heard about nothing, didn't see nothing. The only thing that they had to go on was a videotape. I encourage the people of Sioux Falls to get involved when crimes happen in their community. Help the police. Yes, you're going to have to testify sometimes. It's just how it is. If we don't get a grip on this crime here, we're going to see more homicides, and we're going to see more drug dealing, and we're going to see more human trafficking on these streets. So I encourage that the police department is meeting us halfway on this, but the citizens need to meet the police department the rest of the way here. Thank you for your time, Mayor, and thank you for council members.
Did anybody else want to engage?
Greetings, elected council and mayor, and also greetings, citizens. Now, as you can tell from the slide, my name is David Zokaitis, and I'm very interested in civil rights and civil liberties. today's topic is all about multiple jeopardy because I'm afraid that double wasn't big enough of a number. I had to yank it up and we did double jeopardy in my presentation today. So, here's one. Left button, right button, right button. All right. The first thing you should think about when talking about double jeopardy is the Constitution and the Bill of Rights. In particular, we will start with the Fifth Amendment. Here's an important little quote. Nor shall any person be subject for the same offense to be twice put in jeopardy of life or limb. So what does that mean? Well, you know, it's pretty easy to read the Bill of Rights and the Constitution. The way I look at this is it says if you do one thing bad, there's one offense, one crime, one law, one trial, one punishment. Simple. But the government of the United States of America, city, state, and city and state governments, federal governments, what we've managed to do over the years and decades is get this huge morass of overlapping laws. And as a consequence, what used to be one bad thing now becomes several. And what this has done over the years is promote long prison sentences. We've gotten away from trials and implemented plea bargaining instead. We've also managed to achieve #1 status in terms of prison population. Got more prisoners than any other country. If you look at all the countries of the world, we're #2 in terms of incarceration rate. These are not the kind of trophies we want to achieve. I think there's something very wrong with what's going on in our country. Now, here's a hypothetical example. If the government wanted to criminalize drugs, you might make all of these laws. Illegal to sell drugs, buy them, own them, use them, transport. Illegal to have a place where drugs are stored. And you might make a few more. Illegal to maintain a residence where drugs are used. Can't buy paraphernalia, can't transport it. And then you can double all of these because you could have them on the state level and the federal level. So now this more or less hypothetical example shows how you can create 20 crimes for doing one bad thing. Now, if you go back to the Constitution, you know, it says can't do it twice. I think according to our government, twice wasn't nearly enough. 20 times looks like it would work out a whole lot better. Now, if you read reports of who's being prosecuted for what, you can see that multiple jeopardy is standard practice. I think that's not what we should be having. The United States Supreme Court is supposed to be the final arbiter of our Constitution. It's selected by the Congress and the President. We all know that. But if you think a little bit more, you would expect the Supreme Court to reflect the values of Congress and the President. So if we have a good, noble Congress or a thoroughly corrupt Congress, the Supreme Court's going to be just the same way. I've tried to figure out what's making all of this go awry, and I think one of the big problems is expensive elections. If you're spending millions of dollars to get elected, that money's got to come from somewhere. It's going to come from rich donors who want to be richer tomorrow. And the way to do that is to keep the little people under control. And if you look at the last bullet point here, this all looks a little cynical, but it has marvelous explaining power. So that's my explanation. And a related problem, again, it looks cynical, but it's got great explaining power, is what the news media does. We've got a news media that's beholden to rich owners, and all you have to do is tweak every little article just a little bit, and then decades later, you've got a propaganda machine. Not good. I think if we could have public financing of elections, we could roll all of this garbage back and have government for the people. And we could have some compassion for the powerless, as the pastor said in his opening invocation. There is beauty upon the earth, and I want us all to remember that. So here's a nighttime shot I took of some trees. And with that, I bid all of you and all of you a good evening.
Folks, is there anybody else who want to engage the council? Welcome, sir.
My name is Jeff DeYoung. I guess I was up here recently trying to get property rezoned. I have a kind of a comment, I guess. I know the city rezones property at their desire too that way. It was explained to me that they don't bother sending out notices to individuals that property is rezoned in there. We own a piece of property that was changed from a C2 to an I1 zoning in there. It was explained to me it was kind of magically appeared, might have been an accident, but why they would zone a residential house as I1, I have no idea. But I don't know how much that happens, and to me, yeah, it was explained to me that there's not enough, it takes too much money to send out notice to all the individuals where they're rezoning the property or put the signs up like we have to do when we want to try and rezone something. But I think if you're going to rezone somebody's property, you should at least have notice given to that person, not just an ad in the paper and not just a notice of a public hearing. And they need to have information ahead of time to know what's going on. You know, to me, I found out about this when at the point in time I tried to rezone the other piece of property along Grant Street. I just don't think it's quite right in there that the city does it that way. And yet as individuals and property owners, we have to go through the whole step. And there we have to put up signs and stuff like that. Where's the signs for my rezone, the rezone that happened on our property to it? And I just don't know the answer to it, but I just kind of wanted to make that comment. Thank you very much.
Jeff, thank you. Appreciate it. Well, folks, thank you very much for your comments. We'll now move to item 15.
Item 15, special one-day malt beverage license for Downtown Sioux Falls Incorporated to be operated at the State Theater, 316 South Phillips Avenue on February 3rd, 2017 for our First Friday event.
Good evening, Jamie Palmer with licensing. This is a new event for Downtown Sioux Falls that will be hosted at the State Theater. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Jimmy, thank you. Council, any comments?
Move to approve, Erickson.
Second, Selberg.
Councilor Erickson's made a motion to approve this item, second by Councilor Selberg. There's no discussion. Roll call vote, please.
Council members Erickson?
Yes.
Erpenbach?
Yes.
Neitzert?
Yes.
Rolfing?
Yes.
Selberg?
Yes.
Starr?
Yes.
Staley?
Yes.
That is passed 7-0. Item 16.
Second reading, an ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, amending the Code of Ordinances of the city by repealing and adding Chapter 91, Fire Protection and Prevention, Section 91.016, modifications by the city to the 2015 International Fire Code.
Council, good evening. Dean Lanier, Fire Marshal with Sioux Falls Fire Rescue. Just to review what we had talked about in the first reading, the principles of life safety, we reviewed and talked about why we have minimum safety standards, especially with regards to assembly structures in the city of Sioux Falls. It is to provide for a minimum level of safety both for firefighters as well as occupants. We discussed the changes that were going to be, that were offered in this amendment change, both to the numbering as well as the fee schedules. The two principal issues are with events for special effects and system outages. Common uses for fire standby, the use for laser shows, open flames, commonly used in the facilities that are listed. Some examples that we talked about with both haze as well as pyrotechnics inside some of our larger venues. The basis for our decision was to try to provide a fee structure that we can grow into for the foreseeable future. How we got to that decision, there are some numbers that are behind it on how we came to a final decision, but we're trying to prevent from being back here every 2 to 3 years for more revisions to this section of code. Our key objectives are still to continue to provide the service with a reasonable cost, provide for public safety, and work with entertainment shows in advance of their show. And with that, I'd love to try to answer any questions that you have.
Thank you very much. Folks, did anybody want to engage the council on this topic before I go to the council? Councilors?
Move to approve, Erickson.
Second.
Councilor Erickson's made a motion to approve this item, second by Councilor Staley.
Mr. Mayor, I have an
Councilor
amendment.
Erickson?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have an amendment, motion to amend by adding the following sentence to 901.7. At the end of the third sentence, second paragraph, quote, unless otherwise stipulated in this subsection, Notwithstanding the previous sentence, the owner or responsible party will be billed at the rate of Step 12 fire inspector if the owner or responsible party submits documentation to the fire marshal before March 1st, 2017, confirming an event. Is there a second?
Second. There's been a motion to amend by Councilor Erickson, seconded by Councilor Neitzer. Councilor Erickson?
Thank you. The intent of this is really to grandfather in those events that were already committed by all the venues that require this particular kind of service. So, for example, I know an email list went out to all of those that have used this particular service, whether it be for pyro or non-pyro. Those venues, if they have committed, confirmed dates, they would provide the list to fire marshal, and that would be a confidential document because some of these are very sensitive. It's a marketing tool to not release these dates, and that would be billed at the lower rate if they so should choose. Now, this is not a responsibility of our fire marshal or the city by any remark that this is those that use this service have the option to submit that and be grandfathered. If they don't submit it by March 1st, then it's billed at the higher rate. Ask for your support. Thank you.
A roll call vote, please.
Council members Erickson?
Yes.
Erpenbach?
Yes.
Neitzer?
Yes.
Rolfing?
Yes.
Selberg?
Yes.
Starr?
Yes.
Staley?
Yes.
That amendment is passed 7-0. Councilor Neitzer?
Motion to amend by replacing the overtime rate not to exceed $125 with $75 in section 901.7.
Second.
It's been a motion to amend, as has been seconded as well. Councilor Neitzer?
Put simply, this caps a rate charged for fire standby service at $75 per hour. That's an increase of $20 per hour from the current charge, and it splits the difference between our current rate and the administration's proposed new rate. According to the fire marshal, the highest rate in the region is $75 an hour. The proposed rate of $90 per hour would make us easily the highest in the region. I don't believe that's where we want to be. My amendment puts us on par with other venues in the region. Just two key points. These events generate significant economic impact and revenue for our city. That includes sales tax dollars, general and entertainment tax, both from all the spending of our visitors do when they're here for the events, not to mention the bid tax from hotel stays and the facility fees we capture at some of our venues. Also, in 2016, 2/3 of the hours billed for standby services were provided at our own venues. When you exclude Badlands Pawn, which of course no longer will be hosting events, over 90% of the billable hours are at our own city-owned facilities. In short, we are hosting almost all of these events. These events are the reason for the success of our facilities. They keep the lights on. They're net positive, and they're not a drain on our city. In short, I don't believe it's necessary that we need to capture 100% of cost recovery for this service. This increases the fee, but it keeps it competitive with our comparable cities in the region. It also recognizes the significant impact these events bring to our city, including the quality of life benefit for our citizens, significant revenues generated for the city, and making our own venues a success. I hope you'll support my amendment. Thank you.
Council Chair?
Yes, Fire Marshal Lanier, could you give us some exact figures, if you could, on why you came up with the $90 instead of somewhere in between, as Councilor Neitzer has said, 75?
Yes, sir. In principle, what we did was we strictly went from a mathematical equation that took into account the base rate for the highest step fire inspector. We multiplied that by the overtime rate, which is 1.5, and then we took a benefit factor, which amounts to 1.6, which multiplied against the overtime rate came to that round number of $90 per hour. So the way in which we got to that logic was based on the benefit rate that was given to us by HR. Apparently that benefit rate had been used to account for many number of different benefits, including Social Security, Medicaid, insurance, and then the overtime rate are all fixed costs that we thought was the best logic that we could come up with as to how we set that overtime rate.
So this $90 is basically our cost to have people out there doing the job that we need to do to protect the people of Sioux Falls.
Based on what we have available, it is absolutely consistent with the charges that we've made in the past. Yes, sir.
Did anybody else want to speak to this item before I go back to Councilor Neitzer? Councilor Neitzer.
Yeah, I won't belabor it. You know, that So that is the true cost, but as stated, to me, these events by definition generate significant tax dollars for our city, and it's not necessary to capture 100% of the cost recovery. So,
I would, if I could.
Yeah, Councilor Chair.
I would urge a no vote on this amendment because we do need to cover our costs on this. Yes, it does generate income. Other things generate income that we need to make sure that we cover costs on also. I mean, otherwise we're going to be subsidizing everything if we don't cover our costs. And we really can't ask people to work out there for less than what they're supposed to be paid. I think it's very important that we not set a precedence on this and that we move forward with what the fire marshal has asked us to do. And I don't think it's unreasonable. And I would urge a no vote on this motion or amendment.
A roll call vote, please.
Council members Erickson?
Yes.
Erpenbach?
Yes.
Nitzert?
Yes.
Rolfing?
No.
Selberg?
Yes.
Starr?
Yes.
Staley?
Yes.
That is passed 6-1. We now have an amended motion. Any more? Yes, Councilor Erickson.
Thank you. I just want to thank Fire Marshal Dean Lanier. He took the time last week to sit down with our staff and myself and help me understand kind of the process of how they operate. My hope is, as we've talked, is that this can become as revenue as neutral as possible by tightening up the policy, tightening up how we do things, if they need one, if they need two, how that works. We had a great meeting and it was very productive, and so my hope is that we can get this as revenue neutral as possible by not requiring them there to be as long as, but while maintaining the safety of the citizens. So thank you for your time again.
A roll call vote, please.
Council members Erickson?
Yes.
Erpenbach?
Yes.
Nitzert?
Yes.
Rolfing?
Yes.
Selberg?
Yes.
Starr?
Yes.
Staley?
Yes.
That is passed 7-0. Item 17.
Item 17, a second reading. An ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, amending the Code of Ordinances of the city by amending sections 36.028, 36.029, 36.032, and 36.033 of Chapter 36, Finances, Subchapter Purchasing.
Good evening. Scott Rust, Finance Office. What you have in front of you tonight is the second reading of the ordinance for Chapter 36 or Section 36. Really, the main point of these ordinances are really from the passage of Senate Bill 118 and House Bill 1102. Senate Bill 118 was enacted last year at the South Dakota Legislature. Really, the meat and potatoes of it is that it creates an exemption for government agencies to buy equipment up to $50,000 without competitive sealed bids. We will normally go through a normal, informal bidding process to buy this equipment rather than a formal bid process, which just creates an efficiency for the staff. House Bill 1102, really all that does is it extends the amount of time that we get to review some of our bids from 30 to 45 days, which is, again, a nice efficiency for our staff. To be able to review some of those bids for, say, transit buses and fire trucks, which take a little bit more time because of the length of the bid specifications. With that, I'm open to any questions.
Thank you very much. Did anybody in the audience want to speak about this item? Council?
Move to approve, Erickson.
Second.
Councilor Erickson's made a motion to approve this item, second by Councilor Staley. A roll call vote, please.
Council members Erickson?
Yes.
Erpenbach?
Yes.
Nitzert?
Yes.
Rolfing?
Yes.
Selberg?
Yes.
Starr?
Yes.
Staley?
Yes.
That is passed 7-0. Item 18.
Second reading, an ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, amending the Code of Ordinances of the city by amending Chapter 95, Parks and Recreation, Subchapter Park and Recreation Board, to require audio or video recording of Parks and Recreation Board meetings and requiring 48 hours prior to official action.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Or I'm sorry.
Councilor
If I may, Mr. Mayor. Sorry about that. Thank you. On our desks, as well as copies over there, I've placed a copy of the duties of the park board. In there, you'll see it's highlighted that they have to initiate, review, and make recommendations. They have to initiate, review parks and recreation programs. This board is unique to our 44 boards that we have, and is one of the very few boards that does require this. Planning Commission is one of those as well. What this amendment does is it instructs that The issues shall be submitted to the board for recommendation prior to official action unless the city council deems it necessary for immediate preservation for the public peace and health safety. What we've had to use in the past is, for Van Epps Park, for example, we've had to bring and pull that specific piece out for us to be able to act before the Parks Board. So when those decisions are being made, it is so important for me as a city councilor impacting policy to be able to know what the conversation is taking place, to be able to go back and, if it's staff watching those meetings, and understand why a particular project was cut out of our Parks Board that was done a while back, why the pool passes are the way they are. The other thing that I think has gotten lost in this conversation as well is that having a record to review at least 48 hours in advance is helpful to me to be able to make a very important decision when deciding on a comprehensive plan, capital improvement program, or any other policy that impacts our park system. That's been lost in the conversation as well. And so what that does is it means that the Parks Board, who met today, cannot physically vote on something, come to our informational meeting, or come to our council meeting later to be voted on. It gives that time in between the meetings. In this, it says that it either has to be audio or video. It's my understanding they're already audio taped. And so if we can have access to that information, whether it's on a YouTube channel or whatever that option that wants to be explored, I'm completely fine with that. So I'd ask for your support of this and helping not only us to be able to make the best sound decision we can, but also giving access to the citizens. Thank you.
Did anybody in the audience want to speak to this item? Don?
Thank you, Mayor. City Council members, good evening. Don Kearney with Parks and Recreation. Certainly want to thank you for the opportunity to give you a little more background and some feedback as it relates to the proposed ordinance. And as I understand it, the goal of the ordinance is to provide some more transparency as it relates to the deliberations of the Parks and Recreation Board. I'd first like to share that I believe that our meetings are already very transparent, as the state open meetings laws dictate the required transparency of public boards like the Parks and Recreation boards. Our agendas are posted on the city website and on the front door of our administrative offices, as well as the location of the actual meeting. For example, today our doors of the Oyate Community Center were posted, as well as the doors on our administrative offices. Our board agendas are automatically emailed to all local media that request a copy. Agenda packets are available at our front desk for anybody interested in its content. Our meetings are often attended by both the general public and multiple media outlets. The draft minutes of our meetings are posted on our website within 10 business days following the meetings. Our board meetings have been audio recorded dating back further than anyone on our staff can ever remember. And it's a practice that exceeds the open meeting law requirements of the state of South Dakota. At the beginning of our meetings, we have a public input item on our agenda, just like the City Council does, where people are given the ample opportunity to provide their input. I would also like to point out what the Parks and Recreation Board does not do. They do not appropriate taxpayer funds. They do not spend taxpayer funds. They do not approve capital projects, nor do they approve any operational funding. They are, however, advisory to the mayor and the city council regarding the Parks and Recreation system. And in my experience, and I think in yours as well, I think we're very well served by the Parks and Recreation volunteers that we have currently on our board, because I think they have the best interests in the community in mind. And while I understand there's a desire to hear the deliberations of the Parks and Recreation Board in audio or video, I also wonder about what could potentially be the unintended consequences that may surface as a result of this ordinance. As we all know, board members are not elected, they're not paid, they're volunteers. They're volunteers devoting their free time to serve their community. I know that our volunteer board members spend several hours every month working on Parks and Recreation related items, and again, receive no compensation. My concern lies in the potential for a board member to be misquoted through social media or other media outlets. There's also potential for board member remarks to be taken out of context, which could also misrepresent their true ideas or thoughts on a particular issue. Now, you could argue that the full content of the board meeting would actually protect the board members as the entire audio or video would publicly be available to hear what was actually said. However, that would assume that someone would actually play back the entire recording to get the full story versus just believing what they initially read. I think the latter is likely going to be the case for our average citizens out there. It's at that point, I think, that the unintended consequences could be that it could be harder to recruit and retain board members to serve, a consequence that I don't think the council or anybody else wants. I'd also like to touch on one final point for clarification. Our Parks and Recreation Board meetings have been at the same time on the same day of the month for the last 12 years that I've been with the city. And I believe goes far back beyond that as the same date and time. It was only when the council a while back, several years ago, decided to change their meeting date from Mondays to Tuesdays, which certainly that's their prerogative. But what that did do is that it did mean that our meetings were on the same day, which was fine. It works, and I don't have to be at meetings at 4 o'clock all the time, so that most of the time that works. But just so you know, there was no intentional, we haven't done anything to cause those meetings to be on the same day, so there is an advance notice. The way it was previously set up, it actually provided for about 2 or 3 weeks before we could actually get on a city council agenda, providing even more opportunity for anybody that would want to review the minutes or the audio recording of our meeting. So just wanted to make that clear. So as a department that supports many city boards, I appreciate the opportunities and to share our thoughts on the matter. Some of our board members serve 2 consecutive terms for a total of 10 years on our boards, like the Parks and Recreation Board. And you know, as a staff member that relies heavily on our Parks and Recreation Board, and multiple other city boards that we deal with, their service to us is very important. And anything that would curtail their interest in continuing to do so, obviously, is a concern. I don't know what all might happen if we ended up doing this, but we as staff members and boards certainly support transparency. But the risk, I think, is really in what we can't control. So with that, I'd be glad to answer any questions.
Don, thank you. Folks, did anybody else want to engage the council? Welcome.
Scott Erisman, Sioux Falls. Oh dear, the risk of transparency, opening the books and letting people see what's actually going on. Wow, God, the end of the world, wouldn't it be? Since 1974, the state of South Dakota has allowed any government body to be recorded. It's the law, we can do it. I can't believe that there's even a debate or a discussion on this. This is about open government. This isn't about the cost of what the meetings are going to cost us. This isn't about volunteerism. The planning meetings have been recorded for over a decade, and we've never had a problem getting a volunteer on that board. It is about one thing. Either you support open and transparent government, or you don't. That's it. If you vote for this, you are obviously a supporter of open and transparent government. If you vote against it, or Mayor, you veto it, you are against open and transparent government. Recently, we spent a lot of taxpayer money on what? Sending a private attorney to appear to keep a contract of the event center siting secret. Taxpayer money being spent to keep something secret. That's why open and transparent government makes so much sense. It's open, it's there. It doesn't cost us anything, it doesn't cost us a penny. Not only is open and transparent government cheaper, it's just the right thing to do. Last I checked, I lived in a democracy, and I'd like to hope that my city feels the same way. So once again, if you vote against this, you are for closed government. If you vote for it, you are not. Thank you.
Welcome.
Hi, I'm Liz Meilenberg, Sioux Falls citizen. Regarding the taping of the Sioux Falls City Park Board meetings, I would like to ask you to consider the following. Who does the park board serve? Citizens. Who funds the park department? Citizens. Who has the legal right to attend and view at their discretion the park board meetings and decision-making process? Citizens. But who may have to work and have time conflicts with the scheduled park board meetings? Citizens. Who expects and values open and transparent government? Citizens. It has been said that taping the park board will inhibit park board members' use of frank discussion. I question that excuse and dare to say anyone wanting to serve on a governmental board needs to have the confidence to work in the open and to embrace transparency for the good of all citizens. If members are unable to work in the light of transparency, then government service simply is not for them. City council members are expected to meet and work in open transparency. Should not the same openness be expected of all citizens board members? I dare to say anyone who fails to embrace open transparency through videotaping of meetings is permitting important decisions and huge expenditures to happen without public review. And that is especially applicable when a citizen board advises a city department with a budget the magnitude of the Sioux Falls City Park Department, one of over $20 million. Everyone in today's busy society, those who serve and those who do not, everyone needs to embrace videotaping for transparency, for both the board's protection and the public's protection. This is a necessity and the right thing to do. Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome.
I'm Bruce Danielson. I had another video that I was going to run, but I decided all I want to do is say that I was working in Pierre in the early 70s when open government, these bills were introduced. I was working in the legislature. I've been an open government advocate in the 51 years that I've been involved in South Dakota politics. The only reason why I got involved with George McGovern and I met Carl Munt and I got involved with all of these people back in those days, and I called Dick Knipe up and I asked him if he could get me some kind of a job in the legislature so I could see it work. And I got to be involved with the people that were putting this legislation together that we're talking about tonight. I did my very first recording of a meeting in 1976 at the Clay County Commission when we had an incident that happened. And I recorded it. They made a big deal about it in the paper that there was a squeal from a tape recorder. It was my tape recorder. It was a cassette tape player, big old box I carried, but it worked. And all we were trying to do is get this thing opened up so that the people don't have to go to these meetings. I don't want to go to all these meetings, but I go to them because there's things going on that I want to see. And I know that other people want to see. I've been asked by members of this body, by members of boards, to go to meetings and record them because they want to be able to see them and feel that they were part of the decision. They want to have the discussion. You don't get that from a tape recorder. I've talked with people who have had to testify on behalf of the city boards, and all they've had is a crummy little cassette tape to listen to that didn't pick up very well. The cheapest video camera that I have is actually the best one that I have for recording the sound in these meetings because it's very directional. There are very simple systems. I have well less than $1,000 invested in all of my equipment, all of my expenses that have gone into it, that has allowed me to do over 400 recordings. And this is open government. This is what we are here for. We're here to let the people in their homes be able to see what's going on. And I ask you to vote for this tonight and let it get through because we really need it. There's not going to be any doctoring of videos. There's not all these games that are being talked about. In the 400 videos that I've done, the ones that are the straight-up working session meetings that are in here, and most of the city council meetings that I've had to record over time, the different meetings, I want people to see how the process works. And if you go out to our YouTube channel, you'll actually see by hearings, by committees, by different organizations, because there's a lot of people that can't go to these things, but I find a way to do it. Thank you.
Folks, did anybody else in the audience want to speak to this particular item? Thank you. Council? Councilor Staley? All right, David, you must have a really important comment.
Well, I'm trying to figure out what the problem is. Because the Parks Board says, you know, they record all of these meetings, and here's an ordinance to require them to record meetings, and they don't like the ordinance. So I don't get it, but they should be recorded.
Anybody else? Tim, did you want to speak, sir? Okay. Sure? Okay. Thanks, Tim.
Move to approve, Erickson.
Second.
Been a motion approved by Councilor Erickson, seconded by Councilor Staley. Councilor Neisert.
Motion to amend Section 1 by removing the words "or audio recorded."
Second.
Been a motion to amend this. It has been seconded by Councilor, I think it was Staley.
Yeah, we tied.
Councilor Neisert.
So real quick, this amendment is very simple. It requires Parks Board meetings to be video and audio recorded, not just audio recorded. Audio is the hardest part to get right. Video is easy. It can be done with one wide-angle shot. If we're going to do this, let's do it right. Audio is very hard to follow when you have a multitude of people, particularly those unfamiliar to the audience. Audio works well when you have just a few people and each is well known to the listener, for example, a radio show host and a guest. When you have a number of board members, staff, and audience members, it's confusing, particularly when most of the players are unfamiliar to the listening audience. And again, getting quality audio is far more difficult than video. Once you get the audio figured out, the video is easy incrementally. The administration has press conferences, both at our facilities and in field. They produce a number of TV shows, and we film the Planning Commission meetings as stated. We film events every day. We don't just audio record the mayor's listening and learning sessions. We video and audio record it in high definition. Why should the Parks Board be any different? We know how to do this. We do it all the time. We just have to want to do it. Thank you.
Councilor Staley?
Well, first of all, I wanted to thank the original sponsors of this, Councilor Rex Ralphing and Christine Erickson, for bringing this forward. And I think anytime we're working on transparency in our community, it's really a win-win for the citizens. People have asked me, as we've been dialoguing about this, why not videotape the park board meetings? Right now, the mayor uses that venue in listening and learning sessions. He uses it in press conferences all over town. I mean, it's great. I think that's a wonderful way to connect with the people and put it on CityLink. I think having these things on the park board meetings on CityLink would be beneficial as well. And I can tell you, as a new council member, being able to look back and actually see the dialogue and the interaction of the members is very beneficial, and it helps me to make a better decision. So I'm hoping that we're going to go forward with this thing and do a great gesture of transparency for our community.
Councilor Silbrook?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Well, I'm certainly not against video recording. I think the main point in this whole process is just requiring the recording process. So I would maybe vote no on Councilor Neisert's amendment, just to basically be for transparency and recording, but leaving up to the means or how that's done up to them. So just wanted to make that comment. Thank you.
Councilor Mbach?
I would echo Councilor Selberg that to require only one kind is just a little bit burdensome. I think I prefer the original wording of the ordinance in terms of being able to do one or the other. That I would disagree about the complexities of audio, that this isn't that big a deal. And I would then address the entire ordinance after this particular vote. Thank you.
Very good. We are voting on the amendment. A roll call vote, please.
Council members Erickson?
No.
Erpenbach?
No.
Neizert?
Yes.
Rolfing?
No.
Selberg?
No.
Starr?
Yes.
Staley?
Yes.
That has failed 3-4. Councilors, we have a second reading on that has been Motion to approve and seconded. Any other discussion? Councilor Staley?
Well, and I would like to address what Don Kearney said, our Parks Department Director, about getting people to serve on these boards if we were going to videotape this. And apparently audio is got the same, you have the same concern. And I will come back to something I've said for a long time, that we need to have people on the park board from every district in our community. So if the people serving now would be uncomfortable being videotaped, then I'd say let's open this up and take on this new idea of opening this up to more people within our community. But I also want to say, as far as the video thing goes, and I've said this to other council members, this is not the end. This is not the end of this. We can bring it up again. I think sometimes you have to continue to have a discussion before it takes root and happens. But I'm very committed to doing this, and I think we can do this, and I think our community is going to demand that we do this.
Councilor Ermbach.
As a 5-year member of the park board, I want to stand for those folks, those volunteers, those advisors, those people that are meeting legally now. I mean, we're making it sound like these people are meeting in dark closets with bare bulbs and that no one can get to what they're doing. There are no decisions that happen at the park board or any of these other advisory boards, none that happen that do not come through this city council, that are not properly vetted in a number of ways. The thing that I want you to understand is there is no violation happening now, and that we are audio taping, and we can throw that up on a website somewhere if that's what you want. That's great. But the people I'm most concerned about are those volunteers who are giving their time and giving they're sacrificing. I mean, it's several hours a month, and depending on what sort of situation they're in with their families or their professions, it can be a huge sacrifice. But they're doing it to make this a better community to live in. These people, however, are not public figures. They did not run for office. They are not like the egos that are sitting up here who are willing to put their faces out and put their names on a ballot and to be here every Tuesday night on TV. They're not public figures, and they're not prepared, quite honestly, to take the kind of vitriol, the ugly, nasty comments that we get sitting here as this body. And I would be willing to bet that a lot of what we hear in this room on Tuesday nights is because we are on TV. We hear all kinds of nasty, and I don't appreciate it. And if I were a volunteer on a board like the park board, and you required that I sit there and listen to that just because you want to have it videotaped, I'm out. You know, that's not right, and it's not fair to those people to do that. And there was a time, and Don, you'll remember it, there was a point where we had adjourned a park board meeting, and a gentleman who used to come to these meetings and would be all sorts of ugly all over the city council used a horrible expletive talking to that group, and I got up and walked out because it's not in the job description to take that kind of abuse as a volunteer. I'll sit here and listen to it and be polite on Tuesday nights, but I do not want to put that on volunteers who are just here trying to make this a better community. It is not that I am against transparent government. It is that I am against the abuse that those people would have to take if we put this on TV. And I would encourage you to vote no, partly because of that and partly because the 48-hour thing, that's got to be broken out. We need to, if we're going to do the 48-hour thing, because Don's right, the city council did that to the park board. If we need to make that change, that's a whole different conversation. I'm voting no on this entire ordinance.
Councilor Neisert.
Just real quick to close, I served 5 years on a board as well, and I honor the service. You don't get paid for it. It's a big sacrifice. You only do it because you love this town. That's it. Mm-hmm. So there's no questioning of anybody's integrity. Anybody that does, I find that very offensive. So I hope none of that comes off here. I do want to compliment Councilor Erpenbach for being honest. She's saying what I was going to say, that all of this stuff is red herrings. What this really comes down to is that there's some people up here that don't want some of you at those meetings. That's it. That's it.
Councilor Erickson.
I'll go. That's fine. I was going to let you go. I know you didn't have the opportunity to speak yet, Councilor, but I'll go ahead and go. I just want to make one final statement. This ordinance does not reflect any negativity towards the Parks Board. but instead respect and recognition of this important board, its members, their deliberations, and recommendations to this City Council. The Parks Board is so important what they do and is very similar to what the Planning Commission does in making advice to us and is recorded. I want to make an informed decision, and having these meetings recorded would give me that opportunity. I ask that you please support this ordinance. Thank you.
Council Chair.
I thank you. I'm not as eloquent as most of the people around this dais, but I have some strong feelings. Councilor Staley, I have withdrawn my support of this last week of this ordinance, proposed ordinance, for a couple of reasons. Some of them, what Councilor Urbanbach said. The other is that for all of these people that are cynical about what happens at these meetings, and towards the people, and we heard it today, towards these committees and what they're trying to do to keep us there, my feeling is that we do all or none. We have 44 boards, folks. 44 boards. None of them are important. Airport Authority Board, Employees Retirement System Board, Firefighters Pension Fund. I'm just naming a few. Public Parking Advisory Board. We just heard public parking wants to spend $17 million. Can't be that important. We don't need them on. Veterans Memorial Park, a favorite of mine, and I could go on and on and on. Folks, if we're going to do this, we've got to do it right and do it with every one of these boards. Then I can support it. Every one of them. Thank you for cheering me on out there. And the other thing, we have not thought this through completely because we don't know where these are going to be paid, where the cost of this is coming from. No one has said anything about where it's going to be paid. Mr. Carney, are you prepared to take this out of your budget? Probably not. I don't think you need to come any farther. Yes, it may be a small amount, but it'd be a large amount for some of these. And so I think we need to think this through. We either need to do all of it or none of it, leave it the way it is right now until we can do it correctly and think this all the way through. So I thank you. And I would say that I have a friendly amendment just before when all this is done.
Okay. Councilor Starr.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. One of the things that I find important is that all of those boards, Councilor Wolfing, do important work, and we do thank the people who serve on those boards. But at the same time, one of the things that I've looked at and have met with the REMSA board to bring a similar amendment in the future. And I had a chance to meet with them in their December meeting, and I promised that I would bring some of their concerns forward as well. Some of the same things that we heard tonight about being difficult to find people to serve on their board, being difficult for just citizens to come and offer input at their board meetings. And sometimes they do feel underappreciated for the amount of work they do. We got a chance to hear from a lot of them this afternoon from the REMSA board working on our ambulance system to make it the best in the country, if not the world, and some of the changes that they've made that have been brought forward by the members of the public. At the same time, I was able to work and discuss with them why it's important to record their meetings. And it happened to be the meeting I was at was recorded. And there was a dispute, and I've been part of an email chain with the local media group and the chair of the board about what was said at the meeting. And they didn't have a chance to really say it was the reporter's word against the chair's word of it, what was actually said. And when management at the media outlet became involved, they were able to go watch the video and say, this is what was said. It may not have been what you intended or thought you said. I do that quite often at these meetings. I think I say or make a different point than I intend at the time. But they were able to go back and watch that meeting and say, this is what you were said, this was how it was, and this is how you were adequately quoted by exactly what you said during the course of that meeting. It gave them the protection to have a full context of the entire meeting. I wasn't able to, at that same meeting, I wasn't able to attend the entire meeting But I was able to go back and listen to the numbers from the pilot program that they presented to us today. So I was able to visit with Director Frank and some questions that I had before we had a chance to meet today. My 9-year-old was with me as part of this meeting at the REMSA board. She recorded me talking because she was proud of her dad and being part of that situation. Anyone, our state legislature by statute allows us to record public meetings. I want to be able to see a chance where the entire meeting and the entire context is available online. I understand its concerns. I think when we pass this tonight, we'll have other boards before us that will continue this. We've become a society that is video-driven or audio-driven, and we need a chance to have the entire context available online. That's part of the public service that goes along with it, and I'm going to support this ordinance and moving forward, and hopefully that we continue to do more boards.
Council Chair, did you have an amendment that you want to make?
Yes, I do. From the city attorney, and this is, I think it'll be, well, it should be okay. I would ask to amend the ordinance by adding a technical problem or failure which prevents the recording of a park board meeting or the posting of a recording on the city website shall not be a violation of this section and will not preclude the holding of that meeting, unquote. Yeah. Basically, it says if there's a problem
Is there a second?
Second, Erpenbach,
Seconded,
conversation.
Council Chair.
Basically, it says if there's a problem recording either audio or video, you don't wipe out the meeting and send everybody home and start over again. You go by the minutes. And maybe
David,
Mr.
any
Fifley,
comments?
you'd like to comment on that also.
Pretty self-explanatory, but
It just, it's wording almost identical to what we added with the posting of the agenda, proposed agenda on Friday afternoons, where we had the computer glitch once. The council certainly was in favor of this wording for amending that ordinance, and it's the same issue in case there's a technical problem. It doesn't prevent a meeting from happening.
a roll call vote, please.
Council members.
This is on the amendment?
Yes.
Council members Erickson,
Yes.
Erpenbach,
Yes.
Nitzert,
No.
Rolfing,
Yes.
Selberg,
Yes.
Starr,
Yes.
Staley.
That is passed 6-1. We now have an amended main motion. A roll call vote, please.
Council members Erickson,
Yes.
Erpenbach,
No.
Nitzert,
Yes.
Rolfing,
No.
Selberg,
Yes.
Starr,
Yes.
Staley.
Yes.
That is passed 5-2. Item 19.
Item 19, set a date of hearing and second reading for Monday, February 6, 2017 at 7 p.m. for item 19. An ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, rezoning property at 3408 East 10th Street from the CN Conservation and C3 Commercial Community Districts to the CN Conservation and C3 Commercial Community Districts, petition number 6033-2016, and amending the official zoning map of the City of Sioux Falls. Planning Commission recommends approval 7-0.
Jason Bieber representing Planning and Building Services. This is an application by Eric Willardson. The owner is the George Boom Funeral Home. It's located at 3408 East 10th Street. It's roughly 2.74 acres in size. The purpose of this rezoning is the George Boom Funeral Home is looking at constructing a new home and an outdoor patio area and also a new parking lot. Construction has started on the George Boom Funeral Home. This rezoning really addresses more of the patio and walkways to the existing cemetery to the north.
Jason, thank you. Councilors, would anybody want to set a date of hearing, second reading for Monday, February 6th for this item?
So moved.
Thank you, Councilor Erickson.
Second.
Thank you, Councilor Starr. A roll call vote, please.
Council members Erickson,
Yes.
Erpenbach,
Yes.
Nitzert,
Yes.
Rolfing, Selberg,
Yes.
Starr,
Yes.
Staley.
Yes.
That is passed 7-0. Item 20.
Set a date of hearing and second reading for Monday, February 6, 2017 at 7 p.m. for item 20. An ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, rezoning property at the southeast corner of West 69th Street and South Beale Avenue from the RA3 Apartment Residential High Density and CN Conservation Districts to the RA3 Apartment Residential High Density and CN Conservation Districts, petition number 6038-2016, and amending the official zoning map of the City of Sioux Falls. Planning Commission recommends approval 7-0.
The applicant and owner here is Clint Ackerman. This property is located just south of the Heart Hospital on West 69th Street. It's roughly 14.6 acres. The purpose of this rezoning is as they continue construction out there, they are looking at shifting their drainage area about 50 feet to the east.
Jason, thank you. Would anybody want to set a date of hearing, second reading for Monday, February 6th?
So moved.
Second.
Councilor Erickson's made that motion, second by Councilor Urbanbach. A roll call vote, please.
Council members Erickson?
Yes.
Erpenbach?
Yes.
Neitzert?
Yes.
Rolfing?
Yes.
Selberg?
Yes.
Starr?
Yes.
Staley?
Yes.
That's passed 7-0. Item 21.
Set a date of hearing and second reading for Monday, February 6, 2017 at 7 p.m. for item 21. An ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, rezoning property south of vacated West 23rd Street and west of South Minnesota Avenue from the RD1 Twin Home Duplex Residential, Suburban, and C2 Commercial Neighborhood and Streetcar Districts to the LW Live Work District, petition number 6095-2016, and amending the official zoning map of the City of Sioux Falls. Planning Commission recommends approval 7-0.
The applicant and owner here is Matt Hagelson. This is located just south of vacated West 23rd Street and west of South Minnesota Avenue. It's roughly 0.53 acres in size. The purpose of this specific rezoning is the applicant is looking at constructing a 4-unit townhome on the west side of the property facing South Spring Avenue, and then also a 7-unit townhome facing west vacated 23rd Street, and then a possible office on the east side adjacent to South Minnesota Avenue.
Jason, thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Councilors, would anybody want to set a date of hearing, second reading for Monday, February 6th?
So moved.
Thank you, Council Chair. Thank you, Councilor Urbanbach, for seconding that. A roll call vote, please.
Council members Erickson?
Yes.
Erpenbach?
Yes.
Neitzert?
Yes.
Rolfing?
Yes.
Selberg?
Yes.
Starr?
Yes.
Staley?
Yes.
That is a 7-0 vote. Thank you. Item 22.
A resolution vacating the alley right-of-way from the south right-of-way line of East 24th Street to the north right-of-way line of East 26th Street, lying between South Cliff Avenue and South 10th Avenue.
Good evening, Kurt Peppel, Public Works Engineering. The alley right-of-way in question is near the intersection of South Cliff Avenue and East 26th Street. A petition was prepared and submitted by Willitson Lund Engineering on behalf of the adjoining owners. The petition was signed by the adjoining property owners pursuant to state law. The petitioner has complied with the street vacation policy. A neighborhood meeting was not required moving this forward. If the vacation is approved, we will retain a 10-foot utility easement adjacent to East 24th Street and a 10-foot utility easement adjacent to 26th Street, which is typical when utilities would go in along those streets. Approval of the vacation will aid in the redevelopment of this block, and engineering supports the vacation.
Is there anybody in the audience who wanted to speak to this resolution? Councilors?
Move to approve Erickson.
Second, Selberg.
Councilor Erickson has made a motion to approve this resolution, seconded by Councilor Selberg. If there is no discussion, a roll call vote, please.
Council members Erickson?
Yes.
Erpenbach?
Yes.
Neitzert?
Yes.
Rolfing?
Yes.
Selberg?
Yes.
Starr?
Yes.
Staley?
Yes.
That is passed 7-0. Item 23.
A resolution including certain contiguous territory within the corporate limits of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, Maple Rock Addition, 69th Street and Southeastern Avenue.
Jace?
This is an application by Damian Grable. The owner of this is Bank West. It's located just to the southeast of the roundabout there at 69th and Southeastern Avenue. It's roughly 3.9 acres in size. The purpose of this annexation is they're looking at including this 3.9 acres with the existing property that's within city limits to the north. And then they're looking at constructing a commercial, office, and residential development on this property.
Jason, thank you. Is there anybody who wanted to speak about this item in the audience? Councilors?
Move to approve, Neitzert.
Second, Selberg.
Councilor Neistert's made a motion to approve this resolution, seconded by Councilor Selberg. A roll call vote, please.
Council members Erickson?
Yes.
Erpenbach?
Yes.
Neitzert?
Yes.
Rolfing?
Yes.
Selberg?
Yes.
Starr?
Yes.
Staley?
Yes.
That is passed 7-0. Item 24.
A resolution determining it advisable and to the best interest of the public to gratuitously convey without payment certain real property owned by the city.
Councilor Starr.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I don't think anybody's surprised by this. We've been talking about this issue for quite some time with some land that we own, the use in the future of land or the building at the Ice and Rec Center. In fact, I see former Councilor Litz in the audience, now our county auditor, started working on this many years ago when he served on this fine body. What we have tonight is a resolution that would convey this property to the Glory House to allow them to expand and to provide housing for those in need that have graduated from their program at the Glory House. We spend thousands of dollars providing rehabilitation for people, and as we've seen in our local media just in the last day, and a continued issue that we've had for some time, is providing affordable housing for people as they transition and change their lives from being incarcerated at one point or another. What we've done is we've decided as a council over the past years that we would probably never open this facility again as an ice and rec facility. I think this council has made that as a policy choice, and it's something that we've moved on. This piece of property allows the Glory House again to expand in a location that has access to transportation. It's a workforce development issue. People that would be served by this potential buildings in the future and housing can ride a bicycle to work. They have access to public transportation, a bus. The zoning is appropriate for the type of facility that the Glory House would like to bring forward. So the bottom line tonight, what we're doing is starting step one of a three-step process that it would take to convey this land to the Glory House. Tonight we have a resolution before us that just basically states that we'd like to transfer this land at no cost to the Glory House to allow them to expand. We passed this resolution tonight. We still have to, as a group, to finish this would be to bring a second resolution declaring this property surplus, and then we would have an ordinance, a first and second reading for an ordinance to transfer it, and actually as part of that ordinance would have a purchase agreement or an agreement between the two groups, the Glory House and the City of Sioux Falls, as a way to the expectations the city would have. It would also include a reversion clause, possibly, that would, if this doesn't move forward, or if any time in the future that it isn't moved forward for the use that we've intended as a council, it would revert back to the City of Sioux Falls. So there has been no discussion yet about how that agreement would be written. I think we can work with the administration to bring that forward and to find a way that's acceptable both to the council and the administration and the board of directors of the Glory House. All we're doing tonight is getting the process started, being able to have an open and frank discussion about this is something that possibly could move forward. One of the things that I did do, I spoke with Director Cotter, and he wanted me to make sure that I could convey this to all of us, that Public Works is working with a consultant at this point to look at drainage to putting 49th Street through. That consultant is doing their work in March and will bring a report forward by the 1st of April. By passing this resolution tonight, we're not locked into anything other than starting the process to come up with a contract and a transfer. We will take several months to get that negotiated by the time it's acceptable to us as a body and acceptable to the Glory House. So with Public Works work that's going on, that shouldn't slow this down by any means. There have been a lot of people who've been part of this, and I thank them for that. We've had a lot of meetings. We've had a land use committee that the council has had. We had an informational meeting where we've discussed this item. We've had numerous meetings with the members of the administration, from finance to Public Works to planning, and do more than anything want to thank Director Cotter, or not Cotter, but the Director, our Parks Director, Don Kearney, has been an integral part of this process of bringing this forward. He graciously opened up the facility so we could tour, see what was going on, see how the building, to borrow a phrase, is very tired and past, it would take a considerable amount to open the facility again as a hockey ice rink. But his department has been very gracious in moving this along, and I appreciate that, as well as community development. Director Ketchum has been very helpful in bringing forward some concerns, but at the same time doing what's best for our community. And that's what the state legislature allows us to do by conveying this at no cost to the Glory House. It allows them to start a facility. We can work on things like workforce development. It meets so many different things. But really the bottom line is it is going to give some individuals a chance to continue on their path to turning their lives around and becoming productive citizens of our city. And with that, I'm sure I've taken my 5 minutes.
Is there anybody in the audience who wants to speak to this item? Welcome.
Do I get 5?
You get more than 5.
Good evening. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council, for allowing me to be here. My name is Dave Johnson. I'm the Executive Director of the Glory House. I want to thank, first of all, the Council's willingness to meet with us to have some discussion on this. Our goal, and I say our goal because I have several members of our board here, our goal is simply to create an extension of a safe place for people to go on and be successful. Our clients, both men and women, come to our facility and they struggle. They struggle with addiction. Those that are there have mental health issues. Many of them do. They struggle with employment. They struggle with all the case management things that probably you and I might take for granted. But they struggle. But what we find is that we can help them work on their alcohol and drug issues. We can help them with their mental health issues that go along with it. But when they leave Glory House, anywhere from that first 72 hours, that first 30 to 60 to 90 days is a critical time frame. They fall on their face sometimes. We want to create a facility or an apartment complex somewhere where they can be connected to recovery services, have access to mental health care, have access to case management, continue their employment, because it really is a workforce development piece. We want to be able to provide a safe place. Our men and women are hungry for the opportunity. They are. And when we opened up tonight, we talked about marginalized folks. Well, you don't have to look very far to see somebody that's coming out of prison that's trying to get a job. They're competing with people that haven't been in prison with college degrees, and they sometimes need help. How are we going to keep them on the path if we spend this money to treat unless we continue that continuum? That's really what we're talking about. Glory House has been in this community since 1968. Appropriately, it was named the Glory House because of the assassination of Martin Luther King. That's how it got its name. That's where it came from. So tonight we're here having this conversation because I think Roger Frederickson and his friends at the Baptist Church saw a need to reach out to those marginalized folks. We want to do the same thing. We want to continue that progression. Glory House is accredited. We provide a great service with employment services. We help people figure out their lives. And they're the ones doing the hard work, but I think we have a responsibility too as citizens. And that's what I'm asking for, is that opportunity. We appreciate what the City Council does. We appreciate what you do, Mr. Mayor. But we think that this is a win-win, and this will bring back tax revenues. This will give families hope. And I think that's what we're in the business of. If we don't have hope, what do we have? And we want to have that opportunity to do so. I'm going to close Some of you might have got nervous when you saw me bringing all this up, but I'm not going to read it all. And I haven't had a chance to really read through this. This is the Thrive report that you're all aware of. And I just found on the executive summary, and it says, roughly 2/3 of very and extremely low-income families spend more than 30% of their monthly income on rent, and about 1/3 of those spend more than half their monthly income. Now, that's just for folks that are struggling with poverty. On top of that, put somebody that's also a felon. They can't go to some places and rent a place to live. We deal with some of the offenders that are really have not been the greatest citizens, but they're coming out. We're there to help them, and we want to help them continue this process. We'd like the support. We'd like to partner with the city. We think we can be good partners, and we'd like to move this forward. So please, I would appreciate your sincere consideration. Thank you.
Thank you, Dave. Folks, anybody else? Welcome.
Good evening, council members. Don Kearney with Parks and Recreation. Certainly there's been a lot of dialogue and discussion about this particular project, but I think it's definitely was a surprise when we saw this on the city council agenda, and a surprise for many city directors, needless to say. As many of you probably already know, that we are using the building for storage for our Winter Wonderland displays, including our lights and garland, and we're also storing seasonal pool furniture in that location to keep it out of the elements. You know, since we essentially closed this facility, we've literally had dozens of requests and interest in this property for a variety of different purposes, whether it be adjacent property owners. Obviously, the Glory House was one of those, but multiple different folks that were interested in potentially securing this property. But the point being is that I think there's a high level of interest in whatever we do with this property. There will be plenty of onlookers as to what happens in the future. As a reminder, this facility is still functional. It's available, and it could be used for ice in the future. Anybody that's been out to the Ice and Rec, Shields Iceplex, November through March, I think would say that it's very much at capacity, and it's very much being well used, but certainly there's a lot of demand on that facility. And certainly from my perspective as the department that holds that asset, it certainly would be our hope that we could defer this item until other city departments have had an opportunity to be fully vet it and understand the complete proposal. So thank you.
Thanks, John.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the council. Tracy Turback with the Finance Office, and I am here to speak in opposition to the resolution and urge you to vote no on this particular resolution. And let me say at the outset that my opposition has nothing to do with the Glory House, as I'm certain that the services that they do provide are quite important to the constituency that they serve. They clearly have their mission to fulfill. The city has its mission to fulfill as well, and from my perspective, there appears to be very little, if any, overlap between those missions. There are many, as you know, many nonprofits in the community all doing very good work and providing valuable services, fulfilling their own missions. The city cannot reasonably donate taxpayer resources to all of these very worthy causes. This particular gift would be a significant investment of city resources, and I would ask, why should the city handpick this particular nonprofit, as worthy of an organization as it may be, to be the recipient of such a valuable piece of taxpayer-owned property? As you know, the city's resources are limited, and this is, in fact, a valuable piece of property. As you also know, for nearly a year now, we've seen the growth in sales tax revenues slow. Spending last year was reduced to compensate for that slower growth in revenue. The budget this year in 2017 is flat to last year's budget. Is now really the time to be giving away valuable city property? Is the highest and best use of this valuable city property truly fulfilled by giving it away? This hardly seems a prudent move for the city, from my perspective. The process to determine the long-term best use of this property ought to be much more deliberate, even more so than if the city were considering simply writing a check for a high six-figure range. Consideration also should be given to the future development of 49th Street, which will only increase the value of this property. The move to give this property away seems quite rushed. Let's take our time. Let's not make a hasty decision. After all, what is the hurry? And as Don mentioned, the city staff learned only late last week that this resolution would go on the council agenda tonight. That's certainly not the kind of effective, open, transparent communication that the council has tried to maintain with the administration in the past. And I would urge the council to vote no on the resolution. Thank you.
Good evening, Council. I'm Mike Cooper with Planning and Building Services, and I just wanted to give a little more background on the discussion item tonight. And again, this came up at our last Friday briefing with a number of questions. And I've been involved in discussions about this over the years with Glory House, with council members. This exhibit that's up on the screen now shows you the concept of the extension of 49th Street that we've been talking about for a number of years, that would go from Minnesota Avenue to Western Avenue. As Director Cotter indicated through Councilor Starr's briefing tonight, there's another step in this process that we're currently working on. Although this project has been on the planning stages for quite a few years, there's still property that we have not acquired, and we still don't have a final design of the street. And that's what we're working towards this April timeline, is to get a little bit of idea of what the actual street design might be, and including some of the drainage and other associated impacts might be with the construction of the 49th Street. The main reason that it has been held up historically is because we've gone back and forth with the South Dakota Department of Transportation about what's going to happen in the future to the Minnesota Avenue I-229 interchange, and how the 49th Street extension over to that street would potentially be constructed so that it functions properly. When the Costco store was announced over on Grange Avenue, there was discussions then about should we move ahead with at least portions of 49th Street from Grange over to Western. And I think the store has been pretty successful, but now we're at the stage that in our capital program in 2017 and 2018, we have about roughly $400,000 earmarked to continue to look at the design of the street and the land acquisition, or the right-of-way acquisition. With this exhibit, you can see that with the proposed alignment of 49th Street, there's going to be a triangle-shaped piece of land potentially just directly north of the Ice and Rec Center and north of Glory House. Again, we're not sure what the use of that land is going to be or what could be. And the study that Director Cotter is talking about, I think, will help us answer some of those questions. I know in the past I've been involved in discussions with Glory House about acquiring that future triangle and maybe putting their project there and still making the Ice and Rec Center property available for some other future use. So what I'm talking about tonight, again, is we were caught off guard Friday morning about this, and I know that I've had meetings with other people over the months and over the years, so it's no surprise that Glory House has been looking at this area. But if there's no time sensitivity that we have to make the decision tonight to at least make the commitment that we're going to do something with the Ice and Rec Center, I would think it would be prudent to at least wait at the least until the engineering study is done, which is only going to be another 30 to 45 days. And that will at least give us some more information about what's going to happen with the road design and what's potentially going to happen to the property around this area, because not only do we have to make a decision about the Ice and Rec Center, but there's going to be land all along that 49th Street corridor that we have to decide what's going to happen. So that's what I'm saying tonight is, I think as a staff, we would prefer that at least we hold off until we get the engineering report so we kind of know what the parameters are going to be with the development of that property around the 49th Street corridor. Thank you.
Thanks, Mike. Did anybody else want to speak about this? Welcome.
Your Honor, members of the council, my name is Jim Schmidt, 716 East St. Andrews Drive. Let me say thank you for your service. I represent the Glory House Board. I get the privilege of that. And I just want to emphasize, while I heard Mr. Turbeck and others talk about the timeline, the Glory House Board has spent considerable amount of time informally talking about this particular parcel of property and what it could mean for the individuals that we serve. In talking with Councilman DeStar, we found that this was the first step. This is a step that requires two other situations. And I'm prepared to tell you tonight that our planning for the long range is that we would request, and we're certainly willing to work on any of the planning things that need to go on, and I understand the need to look at the drainage issues, look at 49th Street. But one of the things that I just wish to emphasize with you, by having this initiated thing begin tonight, we then will provide you with a comprehensive business plan, and I think that's only prudent on our part. A business plan that will include a purpose that we wish to have the land, our rationale. We wish to have the plan and show you the development that is necessary, but more importantly, we have to set in motion how we're going to finance all of this development that we would have, which would be basically housing. And housing takes time. If we are to do this, we have to look at the community foundation that the Chamber of Commerce has, and that takes from 2 to 3 years to even be considered for that. You've got tax credit situations that take a long time and a study to have this. And when you get the full report from the Thrive thing, that has some very startling information on affordable housing. And this only emphasizes what we're attempting to do. And the other thing I think that you would want to see would be a very schematic design, not only for the area, of what it plans to look like, how it's going to fit in with this area, with the community, but also you would see the design of the building itself and how we put this together for those individuals out there. And that all will take, it's going to take some time, it's going to take some effort on our part to do this, but we have to begin somewhere. And that is what I view this tonight and what Councilman Starr, and I would encourage you for that support. Thank you very much.
Folks, anybody else want to engage the council on this particular topic? Welcome.
Scott Erisman, Sioux Falls. I've talked about this before, but I've been familiar with the Glory House since I moved here 25 years ago. My first roommate was a private security guard. One of his clients was a Glory House, and I have had several friends who have worked at the Glory House. It provides a great service, and these people need this. But I'm not up here to talk about the moral responsibility of what we should do as citizens or as a city council. Economically, this reminds me a lot of the safe house, where we put people who we were, how should I put it, scraping off the streets every weekend and spending lots and lots of taxpayer money, pulling them, paying for them to go to the ER when it was just much cheaper to house them. And I look at this in a similar light. I work with people that are from the Glory House, and the struggles that they have being a felon, no matter what that crime is, believe it or not, because a lot of renters don't really care. Once they only hear that you're a felon, they don't want to rent to you. And for them to find housing is one leap, a job is another leap, and then for them to find a decent place to live is even a farther advance. Most of these people get stuck a long ways from their jobs. They got to ride a bus a long ways. They're not close to transportation like the Glory House is. And what that does is cause stress, and these are people who are addicts that are already trying to get their lives back together, and what most likely happens is, not all of them, but a lot of them go back to jail, which in turn, as I said, costs us a lot of money. I think giving away a property that we don't use anymore is a very tiny, tiny, small price to pay for what we're gonna save as taxpayers by keeping these people out of jail. Thank you.
Thanks, Scott. Tim, before you come on forward, sir, if I could just ask the folks in the audience, if you're going to have extended conversations, just go out to the hallway, if you don't mind, just to have some respect for the folks that are up here speaking. Really appreciate it. Tim, welcome.
Tim Stanga. I used to deal with troubled youth. You would deal with kids that are 13, 14 years old that came out of a bad household. I'd take them up to my cabin every weekend. These kids were great kids. But when the court takes them out of their house, they go into a facility and they have to live until they're 18, 19 years old. There's no place for these kids to go. But one thing I always told these kids, I said, get an education. Get a GED. I said, because what? That is going to help you. I have a cousin that's in prison right now. One thing I told him, take advantage of any kind of education in the prison system that you can, because of one reason. It's going to help you outside once you get out. To this day, he has taken 2 courses between his electricians and his plumbing. The guys that I dealt with at when they were 14, 15 years old, these kids now are 28, 29. They still call me. They let me know how their lives are going. And when these kids are in trouble, when they see themselves sliding, there's nobody for them to talk to. But they call me. Why? Because I was there for them. They had some kind of a role model. And that's what these kids are lacking right now. And is the Glory House a bad spot? No, because I had an uncle that was in the Glory House. I knew Pastor Frederickson. I grew up with him. He was my pastor. Great guy. My uncle was at the Glory House for some time, but alcohol, he couldn't give it up. And the Glory House couldn't help him. He ended up dying of alcoholism. But I think we got to look at a broader picture. I think our kids, we got to work on our kids too, because once they get out of the system, 9 times out of 10, they're going right back in the system. So if we're going to look at giving people help, I think we got to look at kids too. Thanks.
Thanks, Jim. Appreciate it. Welcome.
Sierra Broussard, Sioux Falls. I think it's a wonderful idea. And this goes back to the hotels and the motels with so many people on parole that's always going back a week to 2 weeks later. So when people getting out of prison, they stick them in motels and hotels and they can't be monitored. I heard that the Glory House is not like the Arch House, and I hope it is not. The Arch House is some different program that's out of this world. If the Glory House is very successful, they have low crime there, the police is not called there, and these people can get help, and these people can go to the Glory House, have an apartment of their own, work for it. That is wonderful. This idea is what we need to get people out of these hotels and motels and to get them in a good environment, not to be repetitive into the prison system here. So I say I'm not for giving away properties because I don't like giving stuff away, but if y'all can come up with a little price value here, that would be great, $100 to $300 or whatever. is valued at. But I think it is a good program, and I think that not only should we work on the Glory House, but we need to work on the Arch House also, because the Arch House is really getting bad, and the people that's at the Arch House is really going downhill on these street corners here on Duluth Avenue here. So I just wanted to, y'all know how I feel about the crime here, but if the Glory House can help to get these people off the streets and get productive, I'm all for it. So thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. Folks, did anybody else want to engage the council before I go to them? Councilors? Councilor Staley?
First of all, I would like to say a big thank you to Councilor Starr, because I know he has spent many, many hours working on this. And so I'm bravo to you. The county is taking the bulk of handling people who are underprivileged, people who are struggling. The county is dealing with these people, whether it be through the jail system, social services. We don't have that responsibility as a city. And when we're talking about allocating resources to nonprofits, I want to herald back to last fall when we started on the council. And we gave a nonprofit called Forward Sioux Falls a 5-year contract equaling $2 million. So we do give money to help nonprofits. I think this is a wonderful thing that we're doing. I'm totally behind it. We can do this. We can make it happen. And we had an arrangement with Elmwood Golf Course where we let them have some of our land. I mean, we're doing these kinds of things all the time. And when it comes to buildings that we're not using, I'm going to say when the park department moves into the new administration building, we need to look at selling that existing property. We have some valuable things within our possessions that if we need the income, we need to be looking at giving that back to the public sector, or excuse me, private sector. So anyway, I just wanted to say thank you to Councilor Starr.
Councilor Silber.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's in my understanding this resolution basically just starts the discussion, and I do believe it's one that we need to get to and have. As Mr. Schmidt said, we have to start somewhere. When you do talk about gifting land, I know it is a slippery slope. What could it lead to here or there? I think it's going to have to it depends on each situation. But I know whether a gift is the answer here, or maybe when it all comes down to it, maybe it's a sale or transaction with very favorable terms. I don't know, but I just know that when you look at the combination of the location of this building and the cause involved, I think we definitely need to sit down and start looking at some options, and we need to start looking now. I know I've heard on one hand it's kind of sudden it's come up, but I also know I've heard that discussions about this particular topic have been going on for years, so let's set a timeline and start talking about it. Thank you.
Councilor Mock.
Thank you, and I would agree with Councilor Selberg for the second time tonight. I'm surprised that staff is doing this, oh, we're so shocked routine, because I know that you're not. This is something that's been going on for a long time, and Councilor Starr just had the guts to get us off the dime. And that's really all this move does, is it just gets us off the dime. It's time for us to say to the Glory House folks that, you know what, we're committed to this or we're not. And it's time for them to go to their donors and say, are you committed to this or not? And is this something that we're going to move forward with? And we might get down to that second or third step, because it is quite a long process. I mean, for us to defer this now or to put it off for now just extends this already long and involved process. But if we get down this road a little ways and their donors say, you know what, we're not with you, you're on your own, it may just fall through the cracks and the city has to come back and deal with it. But I think the thing that we need to understand as a council, and Councilor Staley referred to it, is that there aren't very many things that we can make a huge difference in the lives of the people that live in this community. And this is one of them, where we have spent so much time in the last 7 years that I've been on this council. We've spent so much time making sure we have crime-free housing, that our neighborhoods are safe, that places are, that we know exactly where every sex offender lives in this town and all of those things. And what we've done is we've created a box. And that box is right down there by the Glory House. It's really the only place where these folks can find a decent place to live, a decent place where they've got some support, where they can catch the bus to go to work. And this is one of our opportunities, one of those rare opportunities on a city council where you get to make this level of difference in the lives of the people that live in this community. And I just ask you all to support this first vote in a long process.
Yes, Councilor Chair Ruffing.
Boy, I get put in another situation here tonight where I think we have, while this is a really feel-good resolution that I think needs to be worked on very strongly, it appears to me we really haven't, it hasn't been vetted enough. That we really need to work with this. While Councilor Starr has visited with all these people, hadn't got them into a room and said, you know, let's work this out and let's see what we can do. It's been a lot of visiting and not enough, maybe not enough vetting. I support the idea. I think it's a great idea. I think it's something we need to look at, not to do right now, and to make sure that, and to just move it forward. You know, councilors, many of you are usually against spending any money, any extra money. Tonight we've given away the extra costs of firemen, the extra costs of videoing, which we don't know what the costs are, and now we're talking about hundreds of thousands of dollars. Even though it's just a start, there's 2 more votes. It's more than that. It's a symbolic saying, let's just do it. And I think we need to put the brakes on here just a little bit. Nobody is saying no. I don't think anybody here is saying no, let's not do it. What we're saying is, let's vet it a little bit more. Let's come back in 2 weeks and look at this again and see what we can do and where we can go. So I would make a motion to defer this until February 7th.
There's been a motion to defer this till February 7th. Is there a second? That has failed for lack of a second. Anybody else want to? Yes, Councilor Neisert.
So I'll just throw out where I'm at with this. The first thing is it's my belief that if we don't move this forward, we're not going to move anybody off the dime. This is just the first step in the process. We've talked about that. I just have to address a couple of things that I heard. I heard that there was apparently little overlap between the city's interest and the Glory House. You know, rising crime, recidivism, the lack of affordable housing. That's a huge interest in this city. It's a huge issue. It's not just a social problem, it's an economic problem. We might reopen this as an ice rink. I think we've had that discussion. I have to think the operating losses and opening up one sheet of ice there is going to be perhaps more in 1 year than the cost, than the appraised value of this land. That we might store, that we need somewhere to store Christmas lights, and therefore we don't want to address this problem. And as far as picking winners and losers, it's kind of interesting that a few years back when I was sitting in the audience, I didn't hear a lot of discussion from the administration marching up to talk about why we shouldn't pick winners and losers and giving $500,000 to a tennis facility. So we pick winners and losers all the time. So thank you.
Do we have a motion to, yes, Councilor Starr?
Sorry, and I apologize, but I think Councilor Neisert, and we've kind of wrapped this up, and I appreciate that, but I would be remiss, one of the biggest proponents that's helped me along in this process, part of our staff who's been at all the meetings that I've been with and everyone, but the point I want to make more than anything else, we acquired this land from the Minnehaha Ice and Rec, I apologize, I get the name of the group, for $100,000 is what we purchased this land for. And the purpose was to do good for our community. We put the facility in a financial position where hockey and the figure skating associations could continue to do what they did. This land was acquired in this area, the box that Councilor Erpenbach talked about. Dr. Giebink, back in the 60s, acquired this land and had sold, shared, put it into, the whole intent was to provide for the public good. And I think we'd be remiss as a city if we looked at land speculation of what this could be worth someday, how to maximize profit on this parcel or this piece of land. I think the purpose and the best thing that we could do for the citizens of Sioux Falls is to not find the best way to profit. The best way to profit from this land is by continuing to help people who are at the Glory House. I'm going to skip, answering some of the other objections, but give us a chance to move forward. And I wasn't going to say this, and I have to. Community development asked for 6 to 8 weeks back in October. We've sat on this. We've waited patiently. We've looked for a deal to work with the county that was never there. But it was a chance to hold on to this for a couple more weeks. It was a chance to maybe he'll go away or the council will go away. And tonight we have a chance to do the right thing and move forward. I think there was a quote from Martin Luther King yesterday. It's always the right time to do the right thing. And this is one of those times.
Councilor, did you have another comment?
Yeah, it seems like I don't want to say I'm losing this, but that's fine. I'm not, as I said, I'm in favor of doing something with the Glory House. But I think let's look at this one more time from the standpoint of gifting. Councilor Starr, you and I have talked about other options. According to this, there is no other option. It has to be gifts. So I would entertain or offer an amendment that in the second paragraph, we add after the phrase in the that's in the first sentence, without payment, I would add or sell. We may need to sell this for $1. We may need to sell this for $10. We may need to sell it for $100,000, what we bought it for. But by not doing that, we're not leaving ourselves open to any other options whatsoever, and I don't think that's fair to the people of Sioux Falls. So I would offer that amendment.
So the amendment is you're adding the words or sell after without payment?
Correct.
I'll second the motion he made the motion. I'm seconding his motion to add those words.
We have to, let's have a motion to approve this first. Councilor Starr, do you want to make that?
I would move to approve the resolution.
Second, Urbanbach.
On a motion to approve, it has been seconded. You'd like to make an amendment to add the words or sell after without payment?
Correct.
Is there a second on that?
Second that for conversation.
Go ahead.
My question then is for Attorney Fifley in terms of he is just adding those two words. I know that there are several places where it says gratuitous, giveaway, free. Even the title is gratuitously convey without payment. Can we make an amendment like this and imply that we know we need to go in and change it in all of those locations?
Under state law, you have two options. You either have to sell this property for within 90% of its appraised value, or you can gratuitously give it away, in other words, without payment, and that's pursuant to South Dakota Codified Law, Chapter 6-5. We would need to change several of the references throughout the resolution to make it what Councilor Rolfing wants as far as adding that. I would just add that in terms of the findings that you are making as a council, the resolution has two parts. You are making findings that this property is not held for a public use or is about to be abandoned for public purposes, and you are making a specific finding that it's advisable and to the best interest of the public to gratuitously convey without payment all or a portion of this property. So I just want to make it clear legally that this Chapter 6-5 says you can do this, however, you have to make these findings via this resolution. So this is a major step in terms of conveying this property gratuitously. So,
if I can, Mr. Mayor. And for Attorney Fifley, my question is in regards to your comments as well as the appraisal. We've heard numbers thrown around, oh, this property, once that road goes through, it's $600,000 to $1 million. When the appraisal is done, I'm guessing that it needs to be an actual bank appraisal done through the process. It's not just, hey, I think that this is worth this amount of money. How does that work? And then my second question is, can this resolution be amended down the road? Attorney Brown, thanks for being here. I appreciate you bailing us out on some of these questions.
Sure. Danny Brown, City Attorney's Office. If an appraisal is going to be done, it has to be a certified appraisal.
Okay.
A bank can do appraisal for finance purposes for Glory House, but for our purposes, we'll have to hire an appraiser to do it.
Okay. And then my other question is can this this resolution be amended down the road? Say the amendment does or does not pass, regardless, if the resolution here, number 24, does pass, can we come back and amend it in 3 months, 4 months, 5 months, and add this at that time?
I mean, you could, but you also need to remember you can always sell real estate for 90% of fair market value. So whether this resolution says you can or can't, 4 months down the road, if you wanted to sell it, you had an appraisal, you could sell it for 90% as long as you went through the publication process.
Thank you.
Yeah.
There is a motion to amend this particular item.
Gotta wait.
Yes, Councilor Neisert.
So to clarify, the first part of what the city attorney said, in making the statement that I'm sorry, could you read the first part again? I think that was really the key part that I'd like to ask
The
about.
two parts, Counselor, that you are making resolution on tonight or findings is that this property is not held for a public use or is about to be abandoned for public purposes. That's pursuant to SDCL 6-5-2. And the other paragraph under the therefore be it resolved that's also under the same statute. It is deemed advisable and to the best interest of the public to gratuitously convey without payment all or a portion of the above described real estate.
So the first part, can that be repealed 2 months down the road and unring the bell and say that we think it's the whole thing?
I think Attorney Brown's already addressed that certainly you can come back later and decide you want to sell this based on some appraisal. But certainly I just wanted to clarify for tonight that you are making two specific findings that are required under that state statute. So it is more than just starting that conversation. You are making those findings. You can go back on those findings later, but those are two findings you're making tonight.
Okay, thank you.
It's not the right time.
There's been a motion to amend this item to add the words "or sell" after the words "without payment." A roll call vote, please.
Council members Erickson?
No.
Erpenbach?
No.
Neitzert?
No.
Rolfing?
Yes.
Selberg?
No.
Starr?
No.
Staley?
No.
That has failed 1-6. There is now a resolution as it's written in front of us. If there's no further discussion, a roll call vote, please.
Council members Erickson?
Yes.
Erpenbach?
Yes.
Neitzert?
Yes.
Rolfing?
Yes.
Selberg?
Yes.
Starr?
Yes.
Staley?
Yes.
That is passed 7-0. Item 25.
A resolution advising and giving consent to the appointment of members to certain citizen boards, those being Paul Admonson, Board of Health, Rose Mooring, Board of Health, Linda Karnoff, Falls Community Health Center Governing Board, David Dandar, Main Street Business Improvement District Board, Ann Haber, Main Street Business Improvement District Board, Michael Havlovic, Veterans Memorial Park Advisory Board, John Hasey, Veterans Memorial Park Advisory Board.
Did anybody want to speak to this item, councilors?
Move to approve, Erpenbach.
Second, Selberg.
Been a motion to approve these items, these citizens who want to serve, seconded by Councilor Selberg. A roll call vote, please.
Council members Erickson?
Yes.
Erpenbach?
Yes.
Neitzert?
Yes.
Rolfing?
Yes.
Selberg?
Yes.
Starr?
Yes.
Staley?
Yes.
That is passed 7-0. Council, any new business? Motion to adjourn? Been a motion to adjourn, has been seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Meeting's adjourned.